So we begin with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 is kind of the series underdog for some reason, but it remains one of my favorite. Here we see Jill trying to escape Raccoon City while the Nemesis is relentlessly hunting her down at every possible moment. It remains an absolute classic and one of the best titles ever released on the original PlayStation. Resident Evil 4 follows up with unstoppable action, a great storyline, and really significantly enhanced gameplay. The developers took everything that Resident Evil 3 brought to the series in terms of just relentless action and just cranked it up like to the 100th degree. To many people, Resident Evil 4 is the absolute best in the series because of just how unique and different it was compared to all the rest. For me, I'm a little bit old school, but it remains one of the absolute best games released of the GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 generation. And if you haven't played this, you should definitely remedy that as soon as possible. The Resident Evil Remake comes in at number 3 and remains one of the very best video games I've ever played in terms of atmosphere, overall storyline, and just everything. I adore the original Resident Evil, and this remake is just well beyond anything I could have ever imagined they would have done. Introducing new areas to explore, new enemy types, the whole crimson zombies that would come back to life if you didn't burn them. I know some people who just burnt everything because that just creeped the living hell out of them. Resident Evil Remake was an incredible game, and it changed the way I looked at survival horror games forever. And I will always remain a fan of video games that try and creep you out, even with cheap tricks or what have you. I've always preferred this style to the new action-oriented Resident Evils like Resident Evil 4 and 5. Not to say they're not great games, but there's something about this that just blows my mind. Resident Evil Remake, incredible. Resident Evil 2 comes in at my number 2 favorite Resident Evil ever. It took everything that the original Resident Evil did and doubled it. So you had like twice the amount of game, you had 2 different characters that had branching storylines that eventually connected midway through the game. You had this sense of continuation when you played through one storyline and then jumped in right away into either Leon's or Claire's the respective other storyline. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. It also gave us the first sense of a city that has been transformed into zombies instead of just one secluded area. Sure, most of the game takes place in a couple of areas like the police station and what have you, but for the most part, this was the first chance you really got to see an entire city infected, and just the absolute chaos that ensued. Resident Evil 2 was mind-blowingly excellent, and I still play it to this very day. I cannot get enough of it, and one day I pray they do a remake for this incredible game.
Barry?
You might think I'm crazy, but the original Resident Evil remains my very favorite in the series. And there's an interesting story behind this. Imagine you're in 1996, for the better part of your entire life, you've been playing games that have been geared towards, family crowd. Sure, there have been a couple of more risque titles, especially released at the very launch of the original PlayStation, but Resident Evil comes out and it just changes what your opinion is of video games. This was the first video game to literally scare the crap out of me. This scene you're seeing right here, man, I didn't have nightmares, but I barely could play the game. I was freaking out that something was coming after to hunt me and destroy me. Resident Evil changed the way people look at video games forever. I consider this the very first true mature adult game in the sense of the way it took horror films and really wrapped the gameplay experience around that. This game scared me and blew my mind at the same time. I cannot say how much I love the original Resident Evil. I've played this about 500,000 times, and to this very day, cheesy graphics, kind of weird gameplay, horrible dialogue, and all, and I still come back for more. Resident Evil, I will never forget you.